All right, folks, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to be joined by Citizen of the Future today. This is one of the best researchers within the space by far, highly respected. And like I said, it's an absolute joy to have you with us here today, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Happy holidays to everyone that's listening, and I hope everyone's going to be getting ready to enjoy some good turkey and some good information that we're about to go over.
This is going to be a really fun one, and I'm really looking forward to it. I wanted to start out, though. Who is Citizen of the Future, and what are you working on these days?
Yeah, so I am Citizen of the Future, and so I'm a technology researcher that focuses my niche around the fourth industrial revolution. You know, the one thing that old Klaus isn't really educating the citizens on. You know, it's sort of just a hidden thing that not many people know about because the mainstream media is silent. So I've created, I've been sharing educational information around blockchain, DLT, and things that are transforming the globe, like the digitalization of global trade, et cetera, et cetera. And a little bit about me is I've been in the crypto industry since 2018, and I've been a Red Seal electrician for 10 years. And so my really good with schematics. I build billion-dollar natural gas plants, liquid natural gas fueling facilities, et cetera, et cetera. And so I see process flow. I understand how things move full circle. And that's sort of what has inspired me is I'm a blue collar guy. And since I've been researching this stuff, I wanted to help other blue collar folks that don't have uh, the ability to research as deep as me. So that's why I've created my Citizen of the Future account, just to, create content on stuff building and empowering the future. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm just a regular guy that does a hell of a lot of research. I quit watching TV 2 years ago, and I just research full time after work. That's my thing, is making connections, mapping it out, and just showing these hidden things that mainstream media is shoving under the rug.
This is a great time to have this conversation because for me, I've been telling my audience, my conviction has only been growing during this bear market in the projects
Mhm.
that I've invested in and how I, my basically my overall investment thesis and how I think this fourth industrial revolution is getting adopted. And this bear market is weighing on a lot of people. The recession
Yep.
is weighing on families. And it's unfortunate these days. I'm getting reports, I'm getting direct messages of people saying, just things are coming up in life that are having people to make unfortunate decisions, having to, offload their bags to just make it. So it's a
Yep.
very tough time. Our bags have been absolutely smashed, but I continue to believe more in my projects than I ever have. What's your sentiment right now with the markets and the investments that you've made in this new financial system?
Yeah, so no, I completely agree. It's a really hard time, even for my portfolio. I over risked even during the bull market, and I made some bad entries. Like I took I took some profit, but I then was rotating it in even during the bull market. I was taking profits, rotating it onto other utility cryptos, and those are even down 60%. And like I'm talking some pretty hefty funds. And so it is a very hard time on everyone, but we need to remember that this is right now the current condition of the markets. We're still in a crypto casino. We are in the wild, wild west. And we were warned during the bull market from the standard setting bodies how they stated that, they started targeting proof of work. They started targeting all this stuff. And the negative sentiment right now is, I believe, I sleep well at night because I know one day these utility projects that I've done my research in are one day going to go back once we get that regulation that is needed. But the problem right now is there is no regulation, and all these shit coins are getting phased out. So in order to get to that utility bull run, there needs to be the death of the old ways, which is what we will see when regulations come out. And once the regulations come out, that will enable the use of utility assets, the assets that have the backing and that are interoperable with traditional finance and entities in the space that are actually utilizing it for some reason. So even though, when everyone looks at their portfolio every day and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, I'm down 50, I'm down 80% still. But if you've invested into the utility projects, well, one day it will go back up. You just need to hold and weather the storm. A little lesson from my early days. When I first got into crypto in 2018, I took 90 grand out of my bank account. That was my whole life savings. And I started buying up as much XRP as I can and other utility assets. And then it went through a 2-year bear market. So my 100 grand turned into 40 grand. And I sat like that for 2 years and I kept adding to my bags because I knew the utility. I kept researching and seeing. So it's hard. It's a mental burden. It is a mental burden, but it's important that if you do your research and you understand that this is the banks are the ones that create these recessions. They expand and contract our economy. And this is the power the Federal Reserve and these central banks have all over all of us, because anyone that has too much debt, they wipe out, the bank wins. The bank is the house. So we can't hate ourselves for making bad decisions. We got to hate the higher power that are doing this to us. So
Right.
that's a little bit of what I think. I think this is just part of the plan, man. They got to shake out. You got to think, when has banks and institutions ever bought at regular people prices? They've never. What they do is they crash the market. They shake anyone that doesn't know what they're holding out. So those people throw their cards in. And then what happens? One day at all-time lows, the money flows in and causes that huge poof spike. So that will come, but we do have a storm ahead. So people should be preparing, get your lifeboats ready, because it is going to be a storm, but one day there will be sunshine. We just have to wait through it.
Right. Yeah. Now, for many of us in my community, and I know your community as well, for us, we got XRP, XLM, XDC, few of these utility cryptocurrencies that we really do fundamentally believe in. And then what I wanted to get kind of your update on, though, is how far you think they are along with their adoption. Specifically, let's start out here with XRP and Ripple. We know about the lawsuit. For me, I just continue to say to my community, let's remain patient. We don't know how long this staged out lawsuit with the SEC, this fraudulent case that they brought about, is going to be battled out in courts. And it could take a while. It could take a few more months, could take another year. And for me, I'm ready for that. I think my community is ready for that. But as far as the business adoption, the enterprise solutions that Ripple provides for smaller players, all the way up to central bank deals that obviously are kind of hard to see. We see that they're on these different projects, but obviously there's some backroom deals that are taking place as well, and some deals that are under NDA that they can't speak on. But what are your thoughts starting out here with Ripple XRP? How far Ripple's business model is coming along, and how far the adoption of XRP is coming along?
Yeah. So I've been following, like, XRP has been one of my favorite ecosystems, aside from all the hype and, the riddlers, like what there's a lot of negative stuff around XRP, but when you really look at the base of the technology, it is decentralized. You can transfer as much money as you want and it settles in 4 seconds and only costs a fraction of a cent. It is ISO 222 messaging compliant. And I think it's got a huge future. I think, the bankers, the ones that own the mainstream media, and the ones that own the shadow banking cartel behind the limelight, they don't like change. I found a piece of information that said bankers make about $40 billion a year from payment fees, from the transaction fees. So of course they hate Ripple, because it removes that passive income that they've been relying on for the last 100 years, since the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was created. So I think the case is a red herring, because if we look at what ETH Gate, we look at what they're covering up, it's a huge thing. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'll just cover like a couple things on XRP, share some knowledge, and to back why I think it's red herring. Okay, welcome citizens. So here's a visual I made, and I actually even tagged John Reed Stark in this, which he works with the SEC as a security thing, and he actually never even responded to me, but just blocked me. So I just asked him, is it typical for SEC officials to go on lunch dates with conflicts of interest and use this type of verbiage? So this was actually between Hinman and Joshua Ford Bonney of Simpson Thatcher, who they were actually banned not to have lunch because there was a conflict of interest for the SEC, for Bill Hinman to meet with his previous law firm. So, but in the emails itself, he's like, Hinman's like, Josh, I'm looking forward to buying myself lunch to watch you eat a lunch that you bought yourself. Sounds perfect. And then Joshua responds, buy yourself lunch? Well, you were sitting at the same table as me, also buying myself lunch? Sounds great. So this was actual emails between them about them having lunch together. And well, what do you think were they talking about during that lunch? Simpson Thatcher was an Ethereum-based law firm. And then even Hinman went over there. And so ETH gate, this is why they favorited, he did his speech in his ETH speech where it said, oh, we don't see it as a security, just like Bitcoin. And then now in 2020, the SEC said, oh, we didn't claim that was just Citizen Hinman's opinion. That wasn't the views of the SEC. But are you kidding me? The SEC let that go on for 2 years where citizens thought Ethereum was not a security because of that. So right here, this is where it says here's the emails if anybody wants to pause and they can read it. But look at 2019, there it is. And then
they're just laughing at us while they have lunch, cut, $15 million deal payouts here.
Yep.
Right. Well, they're just laughing at us and attacking.
100%.
Right? Filing the lawsuit, going after the attack.
And why did they file and why did they do that? So let's, when you dig into it, so here's everyone, welcome. This is the map that I've created, mapping out connections around Ethereum Gate, the free pass and FTX that deserve to get investigated. But if we look at Hinman, let's see. So he did his speech. There's his illegal lunch date with Bonnie. He also worked with Anderson Horowitz. Sorry if my pronunciation sucks. Canadian, eh? There's a lot of different meetings with Joe Lubin, the head of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and Consensus, which is a little suspicious because look at Ripple was trying all throughout the years. They're trying to work with regulators to get, XRP listed and value being used in the States, but they basically had 1 or 2 meetings. There wasn't very many meetings, et cetera, et cetera. There's a couple weird statements from Joe Lubin.
Well, for the visual learners, this is just so perfect.
100%. Yeah, that's what's inspired me, is because the picture can say 1,000 words. After Jay Clayton and after Hinman launched this lawsuit, Jay Clayton went over to the One River Asset Management, which was a huge Bitcoin and Ethereum law firm. And or hedge fund, and they bet in 2020, they bet $1 billion on Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's really funny that these guys, right after they had dropped that lawsuit, he goes over to this asset management firm that backs Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then Hinman went over to Anderson Horowitz, and they announced, before he went over there, they announced the largest crypto fund ever at $2.2 billion. So that's hilarious. Now they gave clarity to Bitcoin and Ethereum back with his speech, which was in 2018. They gave clarity, which benefited these guys right here. And now they're working for these guys. So, okay, but XRP's security, and yet they can't provide us a definition of a security or a digital asset. Like, how is this? How are you guys saying that? But it's not the case.
I love how you're not only just showing the faces, the meetings, the dates, but you got the exact documents, the articles.
Yeah, in some of them,
to all of this,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So, like, for example, they click on Hinman. You can see some of the pieces that I've taken from the links, blah, 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 images. See right here, we've sent you a few email account to your Simpson Thatcher benefits. Please check your Gmail for information on your coverage decisions. This was to Hinman from Simpson Thatcher about his retirement benefits, where he got $15 million. So it must be nice to get $15 million.
Well, and just as a refresher, right? This is
Yeah.
just the Hinman documents that we've been able to see so far, right? We
Yeah,
still have more that
exactly.
are redacted and we haven't seen yet, right?
Exactly. And you know what's funny is the first time they released some documents, the SEC Gov, the first time they released some documents, some pieces were redacted. The second time they released the same documents, other pieces were redacted and others were covered up. So it's like, are you serious? Like, how is this even allowed? Like, come on, they're hiding stuff. Why is there no third party that could put an investigation into these people? So yeah, it's just so funny that when I tag him in this, like this John Reed Stark, he's super critical of crypto, of Bitcoin, of Ethereum. He's always shitting on crypto. But the one time I asked just basic questions to this guy, hey, can I get your opinion? 20 hours of mapping out physical documents at crypto law. Does anything look over connected? Like, it's very suspicious when you see this was the first generation of the mind map. I mapped me and XX, another researcher.
Yeah.
We spent 20 hours going back and forth, finding connections, and we made this. This was our first map. And then we got into the future of this program right here, which allowed us to do this.
Yeah.
So, and then up here is FTX stuff. You know, you got Sam Bankman-Fried, Alameda.
You guys have come a long ways from just the little graphics there that I know have been shared on my channel. We always refer to your work and then the mind maps that XX works up as well too. We love his stuff.
Fantastic. It's all about starting this conversation, because you know the mainstream media does not want us. They want us to eat their spoon-fed garbage and just be potatoes of society, right? Like that's what it's about. It's about spreading awareness, digging deeper, and uniting citizens, because there's so much division in the world. But yeah, you know, Sam Bankman-Fried, look at this is the biggest connection. Barbara Fried, she was at Stanford Law. She created this thing called Mind the Gap. Mind the Gap is a left-wing funding group, and they fundraised I think it was like 20 or 30 million dollars for the Democratic Party. So it's really funny when you look at it right here, is her group was supporting the Democratic Party. And then here you have Sam, and what was he doing? He was funding millions and millions of dollars for the Democratic Party and other Democratic people, congressmen and that. So,
well, and it was both sides of the aisle too. Now that we know that he actually was funding some of the biggest Rhino Republican sellouts as well.
Yeah. So, and like, who knows? Maybe that's just a distraction to look like he was equalizing it. I don't know. But then you also look at here, you have Caroline, like they don't mention this too much in the mainstream media, but her dad was Glenn Ellison. Glenn Ellison is a main guy at MIT, and he was actually Gary Gensler's boss. Small world.
Right.
Small world, eh? Like look at that right there. Lights right up. Gary Gensler, and then even this guy at FTX board was a part of Sullivan and Cromwell, and he was also part of the CFTC. And where else was it? And he was working with Gary Gensler as well. So it's crazy when you start seeing this go full circle, because you start asking questions and like, how the hell did Gary Gensler allow FTX go on for so long when they did not have the infrastructure? Like, they were using Excel spreadsheets to track finances. Like, come on, you're telling me you're having meetings with these people and they're getting away with this right under our noses, but yet you go after XRP and Ripple? Like,
yeah,
come on. So that's just this mind map. I'll share the link. You guys can share it. If anyone has anything to contribute, you know, you see something wrong, you see something missed, just shoot me a DM and then I'll get it in there when I get time. But this is like what I wanted to create with this was a digital twin that can be peer reviewed by people in society, like in the crypto industry, that we can peer review and say, hey, let's expose these twisted individuals and get it out there. So that's sort of what inspired that.
You are directly over the target. Yeah, guys, and we're gonna share these down below. We'll share some links to Citizen of the Future's information, his website, where you can find him and get in touch, and then we'll share some of these documentations as well. But to bring it back now, we see the motive, we see what happened here. What is your speculation? How do you think this case is going to wrap up? Do you think it's going to be a settlement here? Obviously, we're hoping that it's sooner rather than later. Or do you
Yeah.
think that it's going to go the distance and we might be here for a little bit longer?
I think we're going to be here a little bit longer. I'm not too sure if Gary Gensler's going to fold his hand and accept a settlement. I think it's going to go longer. You know, what we got to think about this. We have the world's richest banks, the central banks. You have the Rockefellers, you have the JP Morgan, like the Morgans, and they don't want change. They don't want this because it removes all the fees. So for example, right here, this was from Identity presentation, I think in 2020 or 2018. And this just shows like missing information is a US $9 trillion problem for banks and corporations. This is going back to the Swift settlement infrastructure and the payment failures. So right here, investigations cost banks $120 million a day. The US has $9 trillion of liquidity that is locked up on suppliers' balance sheets. There is a huge problem with liquidity in our
That's before
system.
we even get to $30 trillion Nostro Vostro accounts or whatever the most recent numbers are on that. But
Yeah,
I mean, you're telling us we got 9 trillion of just missing money just because of errors.
yeah, of just errors, of just, Brad said, it's in the industry, it's known as Swift has a 6 to 7% fail rate. So when you think about that, it's like, when was the last time there was a fail rate on XRP?
Right.
Right. And then, for example, I have this visual here. Just wait, is that the one? Yeah. So a Nostro and Vostro account. We're talking about holding accounts for the settlement of funds, right? With our society today, if we're sending $1 billion from here to Japan, that $1 billion gets locked away in a Nostro or Vostro account, which is a holding account, until that money settles. So once you send that money, it takes 5 to 7 business days to get to the other side. And then it's just sitting there idle, not making any interest, not doing anything, just holding until that settlement has cleared. So that is a huge problem, because now when you think about, 2008 crisis, everyone's trying to sell their stocks, but it's all held up in these different accounts trying to move across the world. There's a liquidity freeze. There is no flow. The taps don't flow in the current system. And that's why I think XRP, I think these ISO 222 compliant messaging cryptos, because they're able to interoperate with this messaging standard that's used across banks all around the world. So that's huge, because that is enabling movement of value with the traditional finance space. So I think we're at the start of a new era.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are some good documents right there.
Yeah, 100%. What else? So then here's just a cool graph that I made for everyone. I only bring this out once in a while, but this was in the beginning of the year. Japan, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, India, they don't care what the USA thinks. They use XRP to save billions of dollars in fees, and compared to the slow and swift correspondent banking system. So here's just a visual, right? Like here's Swift, 5 to 7 day settlement times, high fees because it costs $50 to do a retail transfer. And you got to think $50 is a lot of money, because when you get into these third world countries, that's like a week's worth of pay. That's like 2 weeks worth of pay when they're paying this. And it's like, that's cut out a lot of people from the banking system being able to participate in movement of value. You got trillions frozen in liquidity in Nostro and Vostro accounts. There's no end-to-end tracking. Well, there is now with Swift GPI, but it still doesn't fully settle within 24 hours. It's still, sure, it sends a message, but the settlement still takes 24 hours. And then they're just working on the ISO 222 standard. But these ones like XRP and XDC are already compliant. So for example, RippleNet's compliant. And it's not the token themselves, like a lot of people think, XRP is compliant. No, it's the companies behind it that, just one sec here. It's the companies behind it that are making these networks compliant with the standard. It's the processes behind it. So for example,
when I send you XRP, it's not an ISO 222 message attached to it. It's a Ripple network that is ISO 222.
Yeah, so they're yeah, exactly. And just to explain to everyone in a basic form, so I wrote this right here. ISO 222 is a process update to common messaging methodology and processing standards for the global traditional finance industry. It has improved analytics, richer payment data, and end-to-end automation. And the requirement for near instant settlement via 222 will result in better payment experiences globally. Because right now, our whole banking system is fragmented. The messaging is slow, it's outdated. There's banks that are on different processes all over the world. But this is a common standard that everyone has to agree on. And that is what is being the new communication rails between all these banks. So, and within the next 4 years, financial institutions are migrating to ISO 222 to increase interoperability, streamline KYC and AML checks, which stands for Know Your Customer, and anti-money laundering checks. These cost billions of years just to do these with the current payment system. So that is cutting costs. And it reduces the manual intervention of payments, because right here is a perfect example just to see a common language for trade processing. This is what ISO 222 looks like. Every party can connect with APIs and have the same sort of layout for information for sending the payment values. So that's sort of what it looks like on the back end. And this was from the International Capital Markets Association.
Right. So we understand why ISO 222 is so important and so relevant, why we think, I do believe that these do have an advantage of getting adopted, because this is the standards of the people that matter when it comes to payments, when it comes to banking, when it comes to the financial system. This isn't me, I guess
we're
now
not
I want
hacks
to
here.
get your
talking...
thoughts though. Get your thoughts though on the success that you're seeing with XLM Stellar, and then I want to go on to XDC Zinfin as well. So what's the current situation that you're seeing with XLM Stellar?
Yeah, so XLM, they took over the partnership with MoneyGram. I just seen the other day that something about some foundation thing about payments to what was it, to help countries in need or something like that. But yeah, no, I think XLM is it's like, just a replica of XRP, but they're just got different partners, and it's more of like a retail based payments ecosystem. But the MoneyGram stuff is huge for them rolling that out. They're partnering with USDC. I think there's a lot of hope for XLM. And yeah, so my research, I mostly just stuck into XDC and XRP. XLM I support because it is the same ISO 222 compliant. It's scalable. It's got the instant payments. It's got the connections. But I don't really have too much information on individualized partnerships.
Isn't that interesting how Stellar is it just stays in the shadows, kind of, with Jed McCaleb there, all of his connections and how shadowy of a figure he is. And then now today, it's like it's really tough to track where they're at, because all of their partnerships are like low key. And so it's like, you can see how big of problems they're trying to solve are. Like, there's billions of unbanked people that they're trying to bring online, and it's very big. But it's just like, how successful are they actually going to be? Now, I just shared with my community, they were part of a deal with MoneyGram, working with the UN on providing aid for people in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. That's the article I was thinking of.
Yep. So that was one that we saw recently, right? But then to this point, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. For me, I see some of these projects and companies that are touting partnerships that can be just a photo op, can just be, our CEOs coming to speak, fireside chat, but they're not actually adopting the token or the currency. So what are your thoughts on that? And what are you seeing kind of, because for me, I just come across a lot of projects in the space where they're touting partnerships where they're not actually using the currency or token yet, right? And what do you see on that regard?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Like I say to people in my network, 99% of the cryptos out there are scams. They're literally just hopium, hype. They're retail hype. They're, they promise all this stuff, but the token's actually useless. The token's not being utilized. So it comes down to really digging in, seeing, are they using it? What are they using it for? Like, for example, right here, this is a perfect example of a real partnership, would be like the SBI group. They're huge in Japan, huge banking consortium out in Japan. They're utilizing Ripple for reducing, it's a bridge currency. So out in Japan, it's a bridge currency. It's a digital asset. It's not a security, and it's reducing credit risk and pre-funding costs, as well enhancing competitiveness. And right here, they say international remittances is around 21 basis points against the settlement amount, where international remittances using XRP, Ripple's virtual currency through Ripple system, is about 8 basis points, or a 60% cost reduction. And then right down here, Bank of America, combined with XRP's token, Bank of America could save billions of dollars every year in cross-border payments. So there is a lot of hype. There is a lot of stuff that is just flashy, right? Like, you gotta, that's why I say stay away from the shit coins, find the ones with real utility, and you really got to pay attention. You got to pay attention to the team, what projects they were previously working on. There's a lot to look out for, because I've even risked a lot of money into, oh, I'll put $3,000 here, just as, you know, maybe it'll blow up. Put $3,000 here, put $3,000 here, into just, you know, being over risky on investing in some shit coins. And now it's like 99% loss, because they actually don't have, this was back in, you know, 2020 and 2021. And so, yeah, it's very, the fear of missing out is hard. And don't buy on green candles, and don't believe everything you hear. Start digging and start, you know, look at industry documents, look at the standard setting bodies, which I'll get into after, you know, like the standard setting bodies. I created this visual of the ones that create the rules around the monetary system. You know, even though we're in crypto, there is regulations being built. And if your crypto that you've invested money in doesn't meet this puzzle they're building of regulations, it's not going to fit. You're not going to be able to interact, and your value is going to get sucked out of it. So what this represents is, here's the earth, and there's a digital network over all of us. And this digital network is run by these standard setting bodies. There's a Financial Conduct Authority, World Bank Group, the International Monetary Fund, the ITFA, the International Organization of Standardization, the Financial Stability Board, the World Economic Forum, the IETF, the IPCSA, which is International Port Community Systems Association for Global Trade. You got the ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, INATBA, FIATA, ITU. Like, there's so many, and like, these players have been creating, talking about documents and talking about crypto regulation. And this is what we all need to think about as citizens, because the regulations are coming. I've been posting the warnings, and it's coming. So we need to be very careful what we have our money in, because once those come, shitcoin shutdown will commence.
Right. I love that.
So,
Shitcoin shutdown. Or
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's just a good warning for everyone, because it's so true. We fall for the hype, right? Like, look at Luna, look at Shiba Inu, right? We get sucked into, right here, just one sec. We get sucked into, right here, for example. I created this visual just to show, but, you know, we get sucked in here. So what's happening in society? We're all focused on the cloud of overhyped opium: Bitcoin, SafeMoon, Tether, Solana, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu. Oh, Bitcoin to 8 million. Ethereum's price, like, these were snippets from the mainstream media. Ethereum's price could hit $40,000. Dogecoin headed over $1. SafeMoon is the safest investment to safely take your profits to the moon. You know, and then Citibank, an analyst saying Bitcoin could pass 300K, right? So here, everyone's so focused on this hype train and moon, you know, Lamborghinis, Dogecoins, that they're not paying attention to the regulations that are coming. These regulations, like, look at Celsius, they popped. Who else has popped? FTX. This was from, I don't know how many months, this was 6 months ago or whatever. But perfect example. Once regulations come, what happens? The downfall into the ocean. But guess what? Do Kwon, he gets to get away with it. He's got his parachute. You know, these guys, these CEOs of these companies, they got their parachutes, but us investors are sinking to the bottom. So it's very, very important to be smart when you're investing in this stuff.
Now we just, and I think people, like you said, get caught up. We got the SEC lawsuit that has
Yeah,
everyone, very unfortunate. But
yeah,
that's just one government body within the United States that's been proven to be corrupt. And then we have to look outside of just this little country here.
exactly.
And us Americans, we tend to think that we're the most important in the world, right? But you have all these other government bodies, organizations, and
Yeah.
what is your thoughts on the most recent news here that we got that the Bank for International Settlement says banks are going to be able to hold up to about 2% of their reserves in crypto assets?
I think that's, we're moving forward. See, everything's it's slow. Like I can't believe like back in 2018, I was like, we're gonna be rich by 2021, like 2022, we're gonna be loaded. All right.
Yeah.
But no, but it's regulations and legislation is one of the slowest moving things. And I can't believe how slow and how broken this system is because we have jurisdictions all around the world, all on different legislation, different rules, and it's a very slow process, but it's a start to a new era. Because like look at 2%, one day 5 years down the road moves to 5%, moves to 10%. We only got, I think, 4 or 5% of the world's population owns some crypto. And when you think about it, how many of that 4 or 5% has dove away from the mainstream media's narrative of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and whatever overhyped hopium ecosystem? There's not very many. So it's a slow waiting game, but it's happening. Like I found I've got documents that just show we are heading in the right direction, but there is going to be a shitcoin shutdown. And what that shitcoin shutdown is going to look like would be right here. Just one sec.
Well, I think that that's a great
Yeah.
point too that you have there on it starts at 2%. And
Mm-hmm.
that actually doesn't go in effect till January 1st of 2025, that rule. But so we got, 3 years here basically before that can even be adopted. So they could
Yep.
change it before they even enact it. Like they could
Yeah.
already bump it up to 5 or 10% by 2025 when it actually goes into effect. And then
Yeah.
that was my initial thoughts too, is that that's just the start. But that
It is.
acknowledgement, that admission, that endorsement shows us that we're on the right path in the middle of this bear market, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And one sec here. I'm just going to find where that document is here. To show where we are moving. Like, for example, let me just see, NATPA, IMF, blah, 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 FSB. So this right here is an article that I wrote on the standard setting bodies of the grid. Just 10, I listed 10 that people should, know of, right? You got the ISO, you got the ISO TC 307 working group, which is a working group, a technical committee creating standards around blockchain and DLT, interoperability, governance, smart contracts, and more. And there's over 40 nations working within this working group. And this working group was founded by Gilbert Verdian of Quant Network. So I think Quant's a huge ecosystem. When you asked earlier about what other ecosystems I find, I think Quant is huge for interoperability because their overledger solution allows an enterprise to move value between different ecosystems, which is huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that. Then there's one sec here, Global
Well, and,
Alliance.
and, and you don't have to understand how all of these groups work down to every last detail to just see and use them as a resource for their documentation, their
Totally.
publications, that we are on the right track, right? When you get
Yeah.
these reports, when you get these working groups that tell us where it's going while we're all
Yeah.
watching Sam Bankman-Fried get arrested and, caught up in the drama, these
Yeah.
guys are releasing the documents behind the scenes here.
Yeah, and it's absolutely outstanding because a lot of these documents that I found that have had top of the world information, their titles are literally just numbers like that .pdf. So and they upload it in weird different spots on their website that isn't like you'd have to go through 5 or 6 different clicks to get to it, and that's how they hide this documentation is through PDFs like that. Like, for example, I created this visual. This is a top of the world visual. So I hope you guys can appreciate the research that went into this is because in the world, we have the G7. We have the G20. These are the nations that have the money and the power. We have the United Nations, UNCITRAL, which is United Nations Center for Trade Facilitation and Electronic Business. So that's the that's for the one below. UNCITRAL is United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. And then you have the Financial Stability Board, OECD, FATF, World Bank Group, so all those other, these are the one percenters. And this was from a document I found May 2022. Now, this is just one snippet on digitalization. This document, they covered this document up with Ukraine as the headline. So just one sec here. You'll find this interesting, is how sneaky these guys are, because every citizen would want to know that they're working on crypto regulation. They would want to know that, hey, the G7 is working on central bank digital currencies, right? Like, people would want to know that stuff, but mainstream media has completely shoved it under the rug. And I'm just pulling it up right now, just where it is. Just one sec.
Meanwhile, instead, they tell us that we need to just blindly support sending billions to Ukraine, no questions asked.
Exactly.
And that's what we should be focused on, right?
Exactly. So right here is the cool image that I put together on economy digitalization, CBDCs and plans for regulating crypto and stable coins. And this was from May 2022, and I'll send you guys the link. But here's the document. This was a G7 document from the Bank of Canada. And the fact that I was keyword searching Google and I came across this, but it's with the IMF, World Bank Group, the OECD, blah, 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 the Financial Stability Board. And it's funny because they go through this document. It's about support to Ukraine, macroeconomic stability, blah, blah, blah. And then another paragraph, and then it came into digitalization. The smallest two paragraph thing on digitalization that says, the G7 supports the work of the Financial Stability Board to monitor and address financial stability risks arising from all forms of crypto assets and welcomes increasing global cooperation to address regulatory issues associated with the use of crypto assets, including in cross-border payments. Wow. So right there, so they in this document itself, they talk about the importance about how crypto and how they're working on CBDCs. We highlight the opportunities and implementations of the CBDCs and potential role in future payments transactions. They say because it creates faster, cheaper, more transparent, and more inclusive cross-border payment services. I'm like, holy smokes, are you serious? And this, like, why isn't this going viral? Why isn't this being talked about in the mainstream media? They talk about the public policy principles for retail CBDCs agreed in October 2021, and we reiterate that any CBDC should be grounded in transparency, the rule of law, sound economic governance, cybersecurity, and data protection. We encourage jurisdictions exploring CBDCs. Like, come on, every citizen should be interested in this. Like, why not?
Well, they're too busy having Kevin O'Leary come shill FTX on CNBC to have someone share some real information, documentation, and really, fundamental fourth industrial revolution, a whole situation underneath the radar, while the masses are just completely distracted.
100% distracted. And that's how they control our population. All these years of life, every citizen that's listening and watching this right now, we are all focused on getting ahead in our own lives, building, working, we got family, we got drama, we got this crap. And then what do we do on our spare time? We fill our minds with garbage from the television. People look at celebrities. People are distracted by shopping, entertainment, sports. Nobody's paying attention because we're not taught to pay attention. Our education system that was funded by the Rockefellers, all it does is makes people hate learning. It makes people just come out of school as distracted individuals that have no idea about the financial system. I don't know any kids that were taught about debt, about interest, about how the banking system works. No. And now look at today's age. We're getting distracted at every point in time. So it's very important to watch what they do, not what they say, watch what they do. And this is what they're doing. In recent turmoil, so this was right after the Luna meltdown. In recent turmoil in the crypto asset market, the G7 urges the FSB in close coordination with international standard setters, Who are the international standard setters? That's the people in the image that I was showing earlier. To advance the swift development and implementation of consistent and comprehensive regulation of crypto asset issuers and service providers with the view to holding crypto assets, including stablecoins, to the same standards as the rest of the financial system. So here we are. This is where we are heading, the same standards. The G7 calls for rapid implementation of the FATF's travel rule and stronger disclosure and regular reporting for instances as regarding to reserve assets backing stablecoins. The G7 remains committed to high regulatory standards for global stablecoins, following the same principle of activity, the same risk, and the same regulation. That's what they closed off with. So right there is the most powerful words a citizen could find, because Tether's screwed. They're backed by air. They can't prove an audit. Everyone's like, oh, it's just fun. No, where is the audit? Why can't we see where that money is backed by? We can't. And that is a problem. So they are targeting stable coins. You know, they're gonna put rules in. And then think about it. Once Tether goes down and people are holding these random ass shit coins that you can't, you know, you can only get through using stable coins. Well, where do you cash out? You can't. You're stuck holding a useless token. But when you have XRP, when you have XLM, you have these ones that you can hold on cold storage, but are interoperable with regulated exchanges like Kraken and other ones that have got licensing. Those are the ones they're going to target by providing regulation to centralized exchanges. The centralized exchanges will only be able to list tokens with real utility and that have real connection. And other than that, they're going to die. Right. So that's sort of my viewpoint on this whole top-up approach, is we need to be following them, because this is what mainstream media is covering up, and there's a reason to it. And there's just there. And then the last thing I'll talk about, just another thing, just a high top thing. So edition number 3 that I wrote for the Lighthouse report, which is done by XRPL and a couple other researchers, is about the digitalization of the UK economy. So not a lot of people understand that, you know, this fourth industrial revolution is a huge transformation across the globe in all aspects, because there's these technologies that are empowering this. It's removing fees, it's removing the manual labor, it's removing and it's allowing data to flow freely across and securely across countries. So my example that I used is the digital economy agreement that was from UK and Singapore. And this was in February of 2022 of this year that they signed this agreement. And in this agreement, it's basically a digital handshake that they are coming up with the same legislation to move digital documentation between the countries. So for example, the G7 and the G20, here they go, they signed it. So now in this agreement allows the UK, which is the leader of the world, to move digital documents between there and Singapore. So in 2023, the electronic trade bill, the electronic document trade bill, is being enacted. So middle about 2023, which will allow digital businesses from Singapore and the UK to move digital documentations between countries, which is huge, because right now, when you look at, just one sec, when you look at global trade, for example, there is, so global trade, so this is on the XDC side of things, there's $19 trillion a year in global trade. This global trade uses paper. There's about 28.5 billion paper documents in global trade a year. 28.5 billion. That equals to about 39,000 Statues of Liberty high, tall stack of paper that is used in the industry. And that is super slow. It's super expensive right here. At least 60 to 70% of information is manually entered at least once. There's a statistic about 39,000 Statues of Liberty with 28.5. And get this, every time, all of us citizens listening to this, 20% of our cost when we order something, that cost goes directly to just using paper as the documentation. That's what it costs. They say using paper is more expensive than moving the globe's containers around the world.
Wow.
So think about that. just using paper itself is more expensive than moving the container shipping containers all around the world. And why is that? It's because the manual labor, the errors, there's no tracking. It takes up to a month to 2 months to settle a transaction. And everything is based off of, in global trade, is based off of the Bills of Exchange Act of 1882. The Bills of Exchange Act hasn't been updated for 140 years. And that is what requires trade documentation to be in wet ink. So it requires it to be in paper. So this is what's being updated in the digital economy agreement. They're updating the legislation that validates digital documents. So this is what is going to empower the fourth industrial revolution, because instead of having to use manual paper, we're moving to digital payments, digital documents. We're eliminating the costs, the nostril and vostro accounts. We're eliminating right here. Average global trade transactions, they're around 36 documents, and there could be up to 240 copies. It could take up to 2 to 3 weeks to process.
Wow.
Right. And then when you think about trade right here, it's fragmented. These are all different. These are where the documents all got to move around to. So you got issuing banks, you got correspondent banks, you've got exporters, you got importers, you got transport companies, you got insurance companies. And this paper document has to be sent to all these different places. It has to be signed and then has to be sent to the next one. So this documentation flow is broken. And right here is an example where I show there's a thing called the trade finance gap. This is what these supply chain finance, these digital trade ecosystems are helping close. Just one sec, let me pull up my mind map to show a visual on this concept, because it is something that needs to get explained to everyone, because it's very important and it's very hidden from the mainstream. So welcome everyone to my mind map. And this is a program that I use called Figma. Figma is great. It's free and it's for every citizen out there. If you're listening, you should try it out. You download it. It's just a drawing board for your information. So you could put documents. You can now have, picture your favorite clips from 50 of your movies in one different place. And if you organize it right and you know where it all is, I could take you to different things with a couple clicks. So that's why this program is valuable, and I suggest it to everyone. It's called Figma. But anyways, where I was going at was the trade finance gap, because this is always given away. They're not covered up. So the trade finance gap in global trade, there is 40% of all businesses, small, medium enterprises, do not have access to the funding that they need to support their business. So right here, this is what banks are willing to lend. So trade finance is a very risky thing. They don't really supply too much money to it. So in 2020, the trade finance gap is equal to the lack of funds needed to power businesses across the world. That funds needed to power those businesses was $1.7 trillion. Now, since COVID has happened and everything's got hell of a lot worse, the trade finance gap is around $5 trillion right here, potentially as much as $5 trillion. This is from the ICC talking about COVID-19 and trade financing. So there's a $5 trillion pool that is missing that businesses need, but the banks can't afford to give it. So that means 40% of small, medium enterprises face loan rejection. And right here, small, medium enterprises represent about 90% of the businesses and over 50% of employment worldwide. So that's how important SMEs are. And 40% of them can't get the money they need to run businesses. So that's why we've had so many businesses shut down, blah, blah, blah. But what's the solution is digital trade. Digital trade, digital documentation in global trade is it's eliminating the time to move these documents. It's eliminating the errors. It's eliminating the cost. Right here is an example of the DLT-enabled future. You have all these different things because a digital document settles instantly, settles for a fraction of a cent. For example, XDC's Inigio right here. So Inigio is the digital document application layer that is on top of XDC. So they use XDC as the fingerprint to get access to the document. The document So anytime a change is made, so for example, they upload the document onto their server, then that is attached to the message of XDC. So when somebody goes on the other side, they get access with the private key. They can make a change to that document right here. So and then that change is documented on the blockchain. So you can have 10 different people. They all make changes. You have the original copy, and then you also have every time, and it's timestamped to when they made a change. So that is allowing a completely auditable ledger of who changed the document, the whole life cycle of the document, and it's also interoperable with the ISO 222 standard. So they can, and Initio enables people to send a document to an email, to a phone number, and they just get access with the password. So it's super huge. And what this is doing is it's eliminating the process time. It's allowing trade finance to become a way more safer industry, because now you can see, these entities you're doing trade with, you can see, and then there's also like trade tech. Trade tech is also built on XDC, and what it does is the tokenization of real world assets. So everyone thinks NFTs is for monkeys, is for it's garbage. Like NFT has no real utility, but it does when it comes to trade assets. Because when you think about this, say you're just a farmer, you have $1 million worth of grain. If you want to get funds for that, you got to go through the banking system, which you get where they're robbing you. But when you tokenize your trade assets, you turn that title, say whether it's $1 million grain, whatever it is, you turn that title into a token NFT that can then be fractionalized. So that is a digital twin of that ownership of that item. So say, for example, instead of just sending it to getting one buyer for it, you could then split that up where say, hey, I'm offering 6%. If I can get this money for 3 months, I'll offer 6% interest. It's in a smart contract. You can have 5 or 6 investors. You could have 100 investors invest into that NFT, which loans them the money. They put that sale through. 3 months later, they get their money back plus 6% interest on that short-term loan that is on XDC. So this is now enabling anyone across the globe in the future here to start participating in trade finance lending. And that will help close the trade finance gap, because instead of just the banks lending, you actually have anyone in the globe that's wanting to put money aside for that. So that's sort of the big breakdown of the digitalization transformation of trade.
Right. Now, folks, I know we've been moving
We're
through a
out of
lot
time,
of
yeah.
information. And now you understand why I said that this guy's one of the best researchers in the game. It's not even close. We're going to make sure that we got the
Thanks, I really
proper
appreciate
links
that.
on down below so you guys can
Yep.
check out all this documentation at your speed and on your own time too. But
Yep.
definitely laying it down here. I wanted to move to the timeline though,
Yep.
and kind of get an idea here. And as you were pointing out with the documentation, it's all hidden in plain sight. You got to go through
Yep.
some extra clicks to get to it. But it's
Yep.
kind of the same thing with what we're exposing with these elites and all this stuff that we won't go into detail on this channel. I know you
Yep.
got the dark side of the mind map that shows
Yep.
how these elite connections and I like to call FTX the chosen cabal exchange for
Yeah.
their operations. But I want to tie this in where we're at with this timeline, everything that's getting exposed, and then some interesting connections that you were able to find. And we've been digging this,
Yeah.
seeing connections with the X.com and Elon Musk. But how does this
Yeah.
all tie together in today's current timeline?
Yeah. So in how it all so for example, this is a very broad question, but it's there's so much to it. There's so much to it. So this is from the IPCSA. I'm just going to finish off with the fourth industrial revolution, and then I'll show you where we are heading, just in my perspective, because blockchain is a technology empowering the fourth industrial revolution. Mainstream media doesn't even acknowledge the fourth industrial revolution, and there's a reason for that. But in the industry, in the trade industry, in the banking industry, everyone knows we're going through a transformational period. So this is a visual I put together because I found a video where they quoted from the IPCSA, which is the International Port Community Systems Association. Let me show who they're connected to here. Just one sec. So then you can see who's saying that and why that we should understand we are going to just ignore the headlines of the hyped bull crap, you know, in the media right now. They're saying, oh, it's all crap, blah, 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 blah. You know, it is like the mainstream tokens. But anyways, the IPCSA right here. The future of data exchange between logistics shareholders, 10 years of IPCSA in 2021. This had 132 views, of course, right? Who they're connected to. The ISO Standardization Organization, World Customs Organization, the European Commission, and the Digital Transport Logistics Forum. Then you got UNCEFACT. You've got the World Economic Forum. They're also connected to the ICC. They're also connected to the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, ADB. So they are connected. And now listen to the words that I'm about to say before where I get into where we're heading. We're amidst the fourth industrial revolution, and technology is evolving faster than ever. Companies and individuals that don't keep up with some of the major tech trends run the risk of being left behind. Single window, amongst others, should prepare and grasp the opportunities allowed by the new trending technologies. And then they listed new technologies empowering the fourth industrial revolution, which would be blockchain and DLT, robotic process automation, which is RPA for short, big data and analytics, Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence. So this puzzle right here are the things that are empowering the fourth industrial revolution. The IPCA members as a whole operate in over 500 sea and airports in over 50 countries, enabling global ports to port and cross-border communication. So the important thing to get out of this is data. Everyone needs to understand data. Where we're heading is digital data flows. And for example, right here is where the prize is certainly great. At the moment, the cash leg, the payment part, is the greatest single constraint of the tokenization of securities, which is rich in potential to revolutionize how securities are issued, traded, blah, blah, blah. Settled, safekept, and serviced. More efficient payment could also transform the cost of foreign exchange transactions, boosting direct as well as portfolio investment. It talks about CBDCs. So we're heading towards CBDCs. We're watching, you know, ISO 222 start to be adopted, start to be utilized. They're talking about how Swift is being replaced because it was created in the 1970s. And we haven't even got to see the fun stuff yet. And this was in March 2021. Where was it? Right here. So we're going into the fourth industrial revolution. That's all I can say. Moving forward, just as a reminder, there's a fourth industrial revolution, and COVID-19 was an accelerator that advanced global digitalization initiatives. Why? This was my question to everyone. Why is such a massive transformation so hidden by the masses? And here's some proof. This was COVID-19 and digitalization, the great acceleration. So it's funny, through all the time on air, they've always kept us citizens in the dark. They're not talking about the technology transformation. They're saying be divided, be separated, hate the unvaxxed. You know, they're turning us against each other so we don't dig into what they're doing behind the scenes. Disruption is inevitable. Digitalization can build supply chain resilience. Recent global challenges made supply chain resilience an imperative for businesses across the world. The COVID-19 crisis, post-pandemic economic effects, and the geopolitical conflicts resulted in critical supply chain snarls all over the world. I've created a couple movies on this where I break down the problems in the supply chain and the solutions. You can find that on my YouTube channel. And, you know, my videos are deep dives. They're to educate. So sometimes they're 45 minutes long, but trick is if you set the speed to 1.5 times speed, you can still hear the words, but it'll go by, you save half the time. So these events and disruptions that have followed revealed how important yet fragile trade flows are for the global economy. So trade flows is an important keyword, global economy. So this is what the digital economy agreement is transforming. They're going to digital trade flows. In today's environment, Supply chain disruption is constant and impactful. It is no longer an if, nor is it really a when, since both omnipresent and unpredictable at the same time. So we can't predict the exact time, but it's happening. The dominoes are falling slowly but surely. And, this is another thing, September 21, the journey to trade finance transformation. There's so much proof. Here's a thing from the IMF. This was September, so a couple months ago. And this is the stuff from the document they released. I took the snippets. Future of digitalization, new era for money, regulating crypto, the ascent of CBDCs, and the money revolution. So you're telling me all this stuff is top headlines in an IMF document. And they even have a train leaving the station. As funny as everyone knows, Rosie Rios has said the train left the station. Well, it's in this document. So it's pretty cool to see that headlines from the IMF. And just to see, right here, I said, the World Economic Forum is mapping the fourth industrial revolution for the elite and institutions, but who's doing it for the citizens? I am mapping it out, my research on the fourth industrial revolution to help people see past the mainstream media narrative. So let's unite the global citizens and share this buried research instead of being divided. So instead of being a one network maxi, we need to realize that it's a network of networks. These networks are going to interoperate with other networks through interoperability concepts and standards. So there they are, and here I am. And this is the important keywords to leave everyone with to research. The standard setting bodies, figure out how these networks are going to interoperate with other networks. If they don't, they will die out. Digitalization of documentation and global trade. That's a very important concept that everyone should look into if you want to be early. Regulations, it's coming, so be ready. You got the Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things. That's a part of the fourth industrial revolution because it's sensors, it's different things that's taking data from manual events and transposing it to do business decisions with. Big data, you got AI, machine learning, you got CBDCs, you got blockchain and DLT with real utility, you got paperless trade, digital trade platforms, digital identity. You can look into the legal entity identifier. I created a visual in this, and then automation. So if you start digging around these and you ignore the meme and shit coins, you will be okay. But the ones that are stuck in the meme and shit coins will miss out on all of this. So that is my thing to say where we are heading, and just to put citizens in the right direction, because this is being so covered up. And that's what disgusts me is just seeing the divide of the reality of information to what the mainstream media is actually stating.
Right.
So
now I wanted to, I know you had mentioned before we got on here, you had just found a recent partnership though with
yes.
Elon in regards to X.com earlier on. And it's interesting to see as he's going to be playing his key roles in rolling over this fourth industrial revolution. Obviously, he's got multiple companies and multiple ventures in which he's playing his role. But what did you find for us? You said you found something back in the day.
So let me give everyone. So I was explaining to Zach here as I wrote this. This was a research piece that took me 25 hours. A lot of these Lighthouse reports have taken me around that time because it's a lot to put together. But this was, so I talk about how this new era bird app is fulfilling X.com's original vision, because Elon, I found in a video, he stated, hey, me buying Twitter is going to help me fulfill my original vision with X.com. So I was like, okay, well, I want to know what about X.com? So you go to X.com and all it shows up is an X. So what I did is I used my search engine optimization analyst skills, and I dug through. So on their website, it's got about 25,000, or it's got 2.8 million backlinks. What a backlink is when another website links to that website. So I actually took 5 hours and went through 25,000 of these links, and then I picked out 11 that actually were very interesting around blockchain, DLT back in 2012. So let me just show you here. So as we see in this report, I break down Twitter. They got a money license, they applied for a money license. So here they're getting into the payments business. Then also here it is, a blast from the past, a review of documents hidden from the internet for over 10 years. So in order to get to these documents, I used my 5 hours of research and then found these, highlighted them all, went through them. They're all listed in the article here. So if you want to see what they were talking about in 2012, this is where you can find it. And the most important thing that I thought was the coolest thing from here was they talk about how Ripple networks are transforming money. And this was from Manu Sporny. I'm not going to read it all. You guys can go check it out.
From
But
April 20th, 2012.
100%. These documents were from 2012. And now listen, the future of money is the web, x-commerce, open money payment standards in the new economy, x-commerce, how cryptocurrencies transform money, how Ripple networks are transforming money. The future of commerce will combine your social network and mobile device. PayPal X developer network mining World Bank data. The crisis of money and its metamorphosis. This was all in 2012, 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And here they are. How Seconds is democratizing mobile payments for global citizens. Hello, citizens of the future. We are in the future compared to this information. And it's just cool to see. So for example, let me just open this up. It should open up right here. So now let me show you this just quickly and how hilarious. So there's a 20-minute video where I break down, read the specific parts from here. The delegated trust networks, the benefit of delegated trust networks, blah, 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 blah. Then they talk about a brief foray into web security. Then it was like, when I was reading this, I was like, wow, they really chose some interesting terms like Ripple trust networks. And this is from X.com, an eBay company, before this was deleted in 2014 or whatever, when they got the PayPal merger. And then it's talking about, you know, the benefits of this. Ripple trust networks are fascinating and they merge the direct trust networks, blah, blah, blah. There's no fees involved and very little transactional risk when you're transacting with your friends and family, blah, blah, blah. Ripple trust networks combine the best of both worlds. So I'm like, whoa, I'm like all excited now for the Ripple part of the Ripple trust network. Exchanging money in the above scenario with your friends is still a direct trust network, blah, blah, blah. Ripple's network in practice. So then it just talks about Ripple's network in practice. It says there's quite a bit of mathematical hoop jumping in decentralized Ripple networks, but the idea is sound and implementable. In fact, there's already a centralized live implementation of the concept transacting real money. If the idea still seems esoteric to you, you think about the $1.5 trillion a year flowing through credit card networks. That $1.5 trillion of economic activity is something that Ripple networks can supplement and maybe even one day replace. Ripple networks would produce short-term loan rates that would be more able to compete with current credit card companies, significantly less costly for customers and far less risky for everyone involved, resulting in much higher repayment rates. The use of Ripple network concept in a decentralized setting would then shift tens of billions of dollars in profit from credit card companies to individuals. It would also reduce the cost of short-term loans by providing a highly competitive market in which to request and receive lines of credit. Now think about this. The Ripple's liquidity hub. Like, come on, we're 10 years from this document, and think about the liquidity hub that's coming out. This is the power of the web, people-powered finance through Ripple networks and decentralized payments. In the next article, we will dive into how cryptocurrencies may complement or even replace the US dollar, yuan, euro, and the yen. And then look at this. So I didn't click that. Like I didn't click this when I was first doing it myself. But then when I was reading it during my video, I literally shit my pants because I just clicked it because I was like, oh, I forgot to click that. And what did it open? Oh, wow, it's not showing up now. Come on. There we go. It is. Yeah, right here. One of the original Ripple websites from literally 2013.
Uh-huh.
Ripple.com. Look at 4,500 users.
Right. Now, I want to clarify this for everyone because there's going to be confusion. So let's make this clear. So back in, I think, 2004, Ryan Fugger started working on the Ripple network before XRP. And basically, Jed McCaleb, Arthur Brito, David Schwartz created XRP, and then the company Ripple basically finalized, and is building out and finalizing the completion, the long-term vision of the Ripple network. Am I correct in
Exactly.
summarizing it in
Correct.
that way?
Yes. Yes. And I actually found the original, like through this. I then also found the 2006 website of Ryan Fruger. One sec here. Let's just see where that
Now, and this is
was.
on top of all of the other investments that we saw from the PayPal mafia into Ripple back in the day
Totally.
too, right? There's been so many connections found there from the PayPal mafia,
Yeah.
X.com, and Ripple.
Yeah. So one sec. I'm just trying to find where I put that link in here. Because yeah, it goes back to 2006. I even found the first white paper from 2004 and Ryan Fugger, and so it was a private version of Ripple. So that
Mm-hmm.
back when we were seeing this, I think this was a month right here. Just one sec. Back to the article. I think this was a month before the public XRP ledger or was formed. I wrote it down. I can't remember if it was 2013 or it was a couple months before.
That's basically when this network, the idea of it was created and started to begin implementation.
Public, yeah.
And it was a private version, and then Jed McCaleb, Arthur Brito, David Schwartz bring it public, and then create Ripple, the company, to finalize out this vision that goes back to all the way to 2004.
Yeah, and then to think like it's crazy that they had this idea of a payments network. A couple of years, what, 4 years from Bitcoin. Like it's really convenient when you really start looking at the things. And then just wait one sec. I do also have this that's worth showing. Just one sec. Would be just.
Well, of course, David patented the technology back.
Yeah, that's what I was about. Yeah. That's actually what I was about to pull up was his original patent there, which is right here.
It's funny because I have this all just buried kind of in my head and right, like in all of my research, but you've done such a good job organizing this and collecting it all, my friend.
Exactly. And somebody's got to do it because otherwise they'll just get buried. So, here we go. 1991 is when he patented the DLT architecture, right? And then you start zooming out and you're like, oh my God, Mojaloop partnered with Mojaloop, right? And Mojaloop is partnered with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You go to their website and it literally says right here, Mojaloop Foundation, Ripple XRP and Mojaloop, creating an inclusive future for everyone and everywhere. So you have a nonprofit, and Bill Gates stated that he's going to give all his money away to his nonprofits. So, and they're taking off in Africa. They're changing Africa. Here they are partnered with the Monetary Authority of Singapore to advance financial inclusion, a payment system for everyone. Then they won an award for its solution for bringing the last mile, bridging cross-border payments to users in emerging market economies who rely on mobile money transfer systems. And then here we go. Mojaloop utilizes the interledger protocol, which can utilize XRP as a payment channel.
Right.
So yeah, it's a rabbit hole, man, and that's why I say people need to sound out, ground out the mainstream media, and do your research, understand before people invest, understand what you're holding. If you just go off someone's opinion and you're not researching yourself to understand how it works, you're going to make a bad mistake. You're going to sell too early. You're going to sell too soon. Well, I guess that's the same thing. I just doubled it up. Or you're going to sell too late.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very important to really take a step back, realize we are going through a fourth industrial revolution. The mainstream narrative is to shake everyone out, to make us feel, because they got to destroy the shit coins. They got to destroy it in order to bring in the regulation. The FTX was basically all a fall victim to bring in regulations. So that's just that's the way it goes, right? They crash it.
I want to, as we conclude, and you've shared so much, unless there's anything else that you've got to share for us before we roll, I wanted to get your thoughts on how close you think Elon is to the end game here, and how strategic Twitter's acquisition was for him.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see some of the things that they implement as a content creator, just being able to post longer form content, get paid for it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we are just at the start. I honestly think we are at the start of a new era. Look at Twitter files. We're just got the first, 8 Twitter files of releasing how Twitter was censoring the citizens. The FBI would message Twitter, delete these 10 accounts. They would find Twitter would then find a reason to ban them. And they're just some were just parody accounts. Some were just talking, they're talking about whatever, and they're getting censored. But now it's coming to a level playing field where we can share our opinions as long as it's not hate crimes, as long as it's respectful information. We should be able to share it. We shouldn't be censored for picking one side. And then another crazy thing is that I've learned since these Twitter files came out is that old Twitter they were sexualizing kids. There were so many of these hashtags and like these pedophiles sharing content on little kids, and Twitter was just taking down a post instead of banning the person. So these people that were posting these images of little kids, kiddie porn, were getting just the one post taken down when it was reported, and they were yet to still post other things. And it all came down to this one Yoel Roth guy. One sec. Is one of the
Well, like I mentioned, I
Twitters.
know we were talking beforehand, you got the dark side of the mind map, and it's
Yeah.
deep. And as we were saying, as I said, back when I initially started going down this rabbit hole and thought, oh, wow, this is crazy theory. This can't be real. No, this is way too evil. Who would actually believe this and worship this and do this? But it's
Now
very dark.
the proof is coming to the pudding, but it all stemmed on this guy. He was the former head of trust and safety at Twitter. And he was literally, some of the things that he's posted on his thing is he's saying like, oh, kids shouldn't, they should be exposed to porn younger than 18 years old, blah, 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 blah. All this disgusting stuff that you're just like, is this real right now? Like, are you kidding me, man? And so it explains why it was let off. And it's, it makes you think too, the FBI was so busy on Twitter. Why weren't they fighting this person? Like, why were they letting kitty porn go wild on Twitter? Why wasn't there a stop? Why wasn't it just got slid on? They're more focused on changing people's opinions on the election itself than actually protecting kids and important subjects.
Wasn't it incredible the connections that you see between the corruption and manipulation in just crypto that we were talking about, but then how now it's gone so much further than that, and it's so much deeper of a government conspiracy, we can call it, right? That can now be documented. We have, and like I was saying with your mind map here, not only do you have the faces that connect, you have how much they were paid. You got now you got the posts that have been made by them, over years that are just sick. And I think to that point, I think it's great to see. I'm in a place here where I just continue to say, I hope that all truth is revealed, and I hope that we're able to bring justice to everyone who deserves it. And I'm here for it.
100%,
whatever shit coins have to be taken down, let's do it. Whatever, I know it's tough. We can't speak on it too deep, right? But whoever in power, government, elite members, right? People with agendas that, at best is corrupt, and at the worst, it's downright sick and evil. I just love seeing it get exposed. And we got guys like you that are just on their ass every single day with the best research and connections being made every single day. I think that they're really in trouble. And that's why I think they're resisting us so hard with putting us through this recession, putting us through these distractions, and every way that they're attacking us, right? It's
no, and that's it. Through generations, when we look back, all the way back to 1913, the citizens' have been taught to be divided. They've been taught to, pay taxes, work a dead end job, be happy with your life as it is. Don't speak against the narrative, because you'll never win. You'll never get ahead, blah, blah, blah. You get isolated. You get called a conspiracy theorist. Oh, there's no evidence. No, there's lots of evidence. There's lots of evidence of this stuff, but it is not spoke about mainstream media. So when you look at our population, how many people just look at the television for their only source of information? The TV box is what controls the narrative. Who controls the TV box. Well, let me just pull up just one visual just to show the control of the system. One sec. Is right here. I like using this as an example. And right there, just take that down. So right here, when we look at this, this is an example that I created out of my research of how it looks. So an event happens. These guys right here, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg meetings, the Trilateral Commission, they control the narrative of all the mainstream news medias. And I'll show you the proof on that. But so the mainstream media, they project the narrative to all the citizens that look to the television news as what's keeping us up to date. And what does that bring to a person? I know for a fact because my grandfather, my best friend, his retirement hobby was the news. That was his passion when in his retirement years. And so I would be mind mapping stuff, showing him the connections that I was finding, and he's telling me the stuff in the narrative that what they're saying. And then, but the last 2 years of when the COVID started, all it did was put in a narrative of fear, biased views, hate against the unvaxxed. You know, he had a loss of hope. He had anxiety, didn't want to go anywhere, didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to see anyone that was unvaccinated. And here I am trying to show him stuff like, hey, Pa, no, like I don't know, you know, like there's no personal growth. So it traps these seniors, these old people with this one biased views, and then it covers up, you know, for example, what does the mainstream media cover up? Central bank digital currencies, blockchain and DLT. They put in the main ones that they want the citizens to see. It covered up the Maxwell trafficking case. And it doesn't give you ways of self-improvement. It just shows you materialistic objects that makes people want to be in entertainment, find this. It doesn't teach people how to build a business. It teaches crap that they want to control the citizens with. And so that's why I made my account as like an archive for Fourth Industrial Revolution education stuff, because I want to stick a spork. I want to make a ripple effect to fight against that narrative. And yeah, and this is what the Council of Foreign Relations, if you guys Google search the Swift propaganda research report from 2017, it shows all the connections of the ones that are, so all the CEOs, they're all a part of these three things. And that's where they get the narrative that they pump across all the networks.
Right.
So that's the rabbit hole of the mainstream media. And that's why I say it's cancer to society, because it's owned by the 1%. The bankers own it.
You've done a fantastic job of bringing this full circle, and I just can't speak highly enough of your research and just you as an asset to this community of not just crypto folks, but people that are trying to move humanity forward. And it's been an absolute pleasure, man, to have this session. And I know we're going to drop resources down below for the community to expand on it, but I just can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing all this information with us. And where can people find more at?
Awesome. Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having me on here and, you know, reaching out to interview me in that, and just to help me get my content out there. People can follow me on Twitter at Utility Theory, because it's just a theory on utility. And my YouTube channel is Citizen of the Future, because I'm a forward-thinking citizen that just focuses on the future, what's happening. And yeah, so that's where you can find me. And I think to close it off is, you know, stay vigilant, always keep researching, always come down to the nitty gritty, always question everything. You know, why is this being taught to me? Is this hype? Is this going to make it? You know, take notes, because, you know, the things that you remember today, if you're just screenshotting it on your phone, you're not taking notes, you'll forget it in a couple months, and then you'll try and be like, oh, where is it? And then, you know, you're finding yourself scrolling in an endless thing for 20 minutes. So yeah, try Figma, follow me on Twitter, dig through I have right on my Twitter account there. Just a main, what's it called here? You guys will find a lot of deep dives and information in here, which is a full breakdown. It took me 5 hours to put this together, but you will get into a lot of different rabbit holes, basics of blockchain, you know, standard setting bodies. You'll learn about, here's an image of some of the top standard setting bodies with a project with XX. lots. The IMF views, you want a rabbit hole, this will take you down some regulated concepts. So I only hit regulated stuff, or not regulated, but around that regulated trade area. So I hope you guys can find some value out of this. There's lots. It's too much information and not enough time. So yeah, I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys get something from this conversation, whether it's this, that, or whatever, and it inspires people to dig deeper, because don't listen to that mainstream media.
Yeah.
So
Well,
cheers, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope it helps some citizens out there.
yeah, and to add to that too, I'd say, and then take action too, because
Yeah,
the research and stuff that you've done is fantastic. And then I know that you're sharing kind of your investment thesis and
yeah,
what you're doing as far as starting a side hustle, starting a business, whether it's me, whether it's Citizen of the Future. We're showing you guys what's happening, and then we're also trying to show you how we're managing the crisis, going through and navigating the storm. And so
exactly.
I would just add, follow it and complete it by taking action to take care of your family during these times. And I know you're
Exactly.
right there with me too.
Exactly. And yeah, it's about uniting the citizens. Like everyone here, you're listening to this. I hope think about how we've all been divided. And I have a good image for that, but it just shows, we've been divided so they can control us. Central banks, they create war so then they can fund both sides of the war. The money gets printed, they get funded, and they can control us easier as a population when we are divided. So right here, just to close it off, they have us fighting each other instead of the system that enslaves us all, right?
Yep.
Throughout society, when we look at all the news, they're always pushing us to hate one other side instead of looking at the ones that control us. So if we unite, we start sharing and waking up people. So my initiative here is hopefully one day I can get 100,000 citizens to wake up to this crap. Imagine if we had 100,000 people to share a retweet, to share information that they don't want us to share. That would trigger a ripple event, a ripple that would then move around the world, pay it forward. And that's what I've always done, and to do is share this information to pay it forward to some of the deep thinkers out there that want to go further than what is, surface dwellers. There's people that dwell on the surface of the mainstream media, and then there's the deep divers like us that are digging into the depths of the unknown of the internet. So from a citizen of the future, we'll end it here, and we'll say, keep learning, keep living, and just be genuine. Bring positive to the world, not negative, and maybe we can make a change.
Amen, brother. I couldn't said it better.
Amen.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you. I know the community loves your stuff, and you guys
Yeah.
check out the links on down below. And hopefully we can do this session again here in the future, because there's still a lot more to cover. But this hopefully brought some insight for everyone, and we'll definitely run it up again here soon sometime. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, brother. I
Cheers.
appreciate it, and God
Cheers.
bless.
Okay. Yeah. God bless everyone. Keep going. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you guys.